social, music, talk. What was your feeling about where you wanted to work?
When I was with Mark and Brian, that was exactly where I wanted to be. And when I was at KSCA, that was exactly where I wanted to be. I couldn't, at KSCA, we would play. You asked earlier about if they were album tracks. We played album tracks. We didn't only play the single off the album. We did play deeper cuts. And if we had one track in heavy rotation, we would play an album track to offset it.
Like Dave Matthews, who probably played some album cut stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We played a lot of Dave Matthews, never just the hits.
Or 10,000 Maniacs.
Yep, those were core format artists for us. So I had heard the rumors that that station, it was Gene Autry's last station. It was they were an easy listening, a beautiful music station with the very unfortunate call letters of KLIT. And when we came in, we took over. I mean, I remember, the day they flipped formats, and I had already been hired. And we went into, and actually we started from new studios and everything, but we went into the old studios when the flip happened. And the guy who was on the air played Oingo Boingo, Dead Man's Party, and we all felt, guilty. But then it was just this amazing radio station that we built from the ground up, and it like I said, it's still, it's more than 20 years since it's gone. It was 20 years in February that it went off the air, and
wow.
I still there's a Facebook group dedicated to it, and all the interviews that we did. Our general manager, who was an amazing person, his name was Bill Ward. He died, I want to say about five years or so after KSCA went off the air, which was a tremendous loss because he was an amazing human being. But he also had all the tapes, all the masters from the music hall. I told you we had these incredible artists come through to perform live. From everyone from, I did the first radio interview in Los Angeles with Dave Matthews, first one with Ben Folds 5. I interviewed, we so many. And so he had the masters, and I tried to get them from his son for years and years and years, who always said he didn't know where they were and they were lost. And finally, I hate to put it this way, 3 years ago, I got sick. I was diagnosed with lung cancer. And
that's too bad.
the son had already let a fan of the station who was also working with me trying to get a hold of these old tapes. He'd been in contact with him, and he said he found them, but he didn't want to release them, and he was just dragging his feet. And finally, I posted something snarky to this group and it's like, it would sure be nice to have them before I die. And sure enough, he wound up releasing the whole bunch of them to this guy, Bruce, this listener, who digitized them all. So in addition to the ones I had already had, I'm slowly but surely starting to upload some of the music interviews. So, for instance, at my website, at NicoleSandler.com, under the Nicole Sandler Show, there's a tab called The Music Interviews. And so far I've posted David Byrne, Randy Newman, XTC, Ben Folds 5, Dave Matthews, Colin Hay, J.J. Cale, Joan Baez, and Dar Williams, and Kevin Gilbert, who I talked about actually today, is the anniversary of when he died many years ago. I think it was like 96 or something. So I'm putting up those interviews just because they're a blast from the past, and people are interested in them.
I think people do care about radio history, and that's what my website, playlistresearch.com, is all about, radio history. And I even get college people students sending me lots of praise email about it, because it's a big encyclopedia of the radio industry, and that's why we're doing this interview. To document history that I think is important history. And I want to know real quickly, because this station, this network that we're on, WS Radio, we've had several guests on here from 91X in San Diego, and we talked briefly how you were at Clear Channel, a worldclassrock.com thing from 97 to 2001. During that era, you were at 91X and 97 to 98 as the part of the Brand X morning show. So tell us about that.
Well, that was, as I mentioned, Chris Cantori, who has been. It was funny because when I went to 91X, it was after KSCA went off the air, and so it was kind of a devastating time. When the day KSCA signed off the air, we were sold, and the station went Spanish.
Right.
I was hired by the Album Network, which was a radio trade publication
that I wrote for too.
And, right, and I was the rock music editor, but I wasn't the AAA editor. I was the rock editor, so that meant I had to write because it was a trade magazine. It wasn't a consumer paper. It was promotional. So they were called reviews. I called them, my own name for them was PPs, promotional paragraphs. And I had to write about, Iron Maiden and Def Leppard and music that I just didn't like. So it just, I put in my 6 months. I promised them I'd give it 6 months, and I left. And 91X had hired me to do weekends. So I was driving down, it was about an hour and a half drive the way I drove from Santa Monica or Laurel Canyon down to
that would be fast.
Down to San Diego. Yeah, actually, it was from San Diego. I was in San Diego. In Santa Monica at the time.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So it was about 90 minutes, a little more. So I would drive down there and do that, and then they needed a co-host for Chris Cantori for their Brand X morning show. And when I met Chris, he was so fun. He was young. And I was at the time, I was like 36, but I was like the old lady at 91X. I was like the mother. I think everyone else was in their 20s. And Chris said, "Oh my God, I grew up listening to you with Mark and Brian." And it's like, okay. So, but I love Chris. He's like my brother. And he was just hired again. This is like his fourth incarnation doing mornings in San Diego. He's on 100 point whatever it is, KFMB.
Yeah, I listen to that.
So it's 100.7 in San Diego, and
okay.
So so Chris has only been there, I guess, about a month now.
Well, in case, say like Mike Halloran is listening, what would you like to say to Mike?
Oh, Halloran's an old friend. I love Mike. Hi, Halloran. That's all.
He's on this show frequently. So Max Tolkoff has been on here, and we've had other. Brian Schock has been on here.
Brian Schock was my boss at 91X.
And what would you like to say to Brian, who just got back from a European tour?
I don't know. I heard he's back in San Diego.
Yeah.
More to him.
Cool. So then you went on the Sirius satellite radio, right? Doing you were voicing mornings for an alternative country network, right?
Yeah, the alt country channel. The alt country channel, which doesn't exist anymore. It was programmed at the time by Meg Griffin. Now Meg Griffin is still on XM. She was one of the jocks on NEW FM in New York when I was still in college, and my boyfriend at the time, who was also a radio guy. Was from New York, and he would have tapes sent to him from NEW, which at the time was doing just really good radio. And I fell in love with Meg Griffin. In fact, we were just in the car yesterday, and my husband's not a fan of disc jockeys. He changes the channel when the music ends. But Meg came on, and he actually let it play. And I explained to him that Meg Griffin was my radio idol, that, when I was in college, she was who I wanted to be. And I got to meet her, and sure enough, she hired me to, voice track for that alt country channel. It was the early days of Sirius. It was before they merged. And
did they play music like music like Dwight Yoakam or some kind of more rockin' country than normal?
Yeah, they did. It was Dwight Yoakam, but it was Wilco, and it was the Jayhawks and Sunvolt.
Okay, so kind of AAA almost.
Yeah, but Americana, more Americana.
Yeah,
and some more country-ish stuff that is not really my forte. But again, it was voice tracking, which was disconcerting because it was Sirius before Sirius XM. I mean, satellite radio was supposed to be something different, and it's really, you're programming and sending me a selector log, and I'm voice tracking. This is not what it was supposed to be, and it's only gotten worse from there. So I'm
okay.
Totally.
Well, we're going to be wrapping this up in the next 10 minutes, but I want to focus for a few minutes on WXRV from 2003 to 2004. That was a AAA station. You were PD and did afternoons. Tell us about that experience.
Well, as I said, it wasn't really in Boston. It was a station in the suburbs. We weren't in the Boston metro, although we showed up in the ratings, albeit, down near the bottom. But I'll tell you, as the station is owned by Northeast Broadcasting, which is actually this guy, Steve Silberberg, who is certifiable. The guy is just a nut job. And I just moved back to Florida. My father was sick at the time. I was doing the voice tracking on Sirius from down here. And I had met Steven Silberberg, through the AAA community. And he flew me up there and he offered me a job and I just couldn't turn him down. So I moved up there and it was pretty, he's just he's a tough person. Very difficult to work for. And so I lasted a little over a year. I think it was mutual, on both our ends. It's like, enough of this. And I moved back down here. My father had just passed away, so I could move into his house. I actually started a video production business. He so soured me on radio that I got out of radio for a couple of years.
Well, radio fell apart from the late 90s on, in my opinion.
Yes, it did. But this guy was such an ogre. I moved back down here. My daughter was just starting kindergarten. She just turned 20 2 weeks ago.
Wow,
so,
all right.
Down here.
So
I moved back down here. Did this video production company, which I loved doing the production work. I hated the sales end of it. And that's when I started talking to WINZ, which was then the Air America affiliate down here. I had heard they were going to put on a local morning show. And and the guy that they were hiring, I knew of him. He was a Miami Herald reporter. And I called the program director. I said, Jim DeFeedy's great, but he needs a radio person to work with him. Long story short, they hired me as his producer. He had a lot of health problems, so I wound up being his co-host and his fill-in and the news person and the promotion director of the station. And eventually, after a year, they didn't renew his contract, and they slid me into the morning show over there, where I stayed doing that until, they went off the air the Friday before the Democratic convention in 2008.
Okay,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is all amazing. We're kind of wrapping it up in the next few minutes here. So what have we not talked about that would be more interesting to this story?
Well, I mean, what I'm doing now, I guess. So I was doing, political talk over on WINZ, and then I went to Air America. And after Air America, like I said, almost 10 years ago now, I moved my show online, where it lives now. It's at NicoleSandler.com. I do it live on my stream on my website and on YouTube at 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific, Tuesday through Friday. And it's podcast and available, like things are now, 24/7.
And I love your show, Nicole. So thank you very much, Nicole, for joining us today.
Thanks. All right. Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
see you later. Nicole Sandler, social music.